Well, hi there. My name's Nick Kinky. This is Emma. She is another leader that I'm going to be interviewing. Hi, Emma.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing good.
So Emma, I just have a few questions for you today. Just about your leadership, exactly what all falls into that, and kind of what you've learned in your leadership role. So go ahead and tell me what all are you currently overseeing in your leadership role?
hmm I am the leader of our youth worship team at our church, and then I'm the leader of various other things in the worship ministry. But that's my biggest thing that I oversee.
Okay. And how long have you been doing that?
Well, that's a great question, actually. It's been a while. Right when I graduated from high school was when I started working at the church, and it was only like a couple months after that I started leading that team. So probably, I don't know, it's been a few years now.
Yeah. Okay. So I want you to tell me a little bit about that. How did you first get into leadership? Where did it all start for you? How did it all begin? I know it's only been a few years for you now that you've been in this position. So tell me about the beginning. How did that start for you?
Yep, right out of high school, one of the pastors at our church hired me as their admin.
Okay.
He was a campus pastor at the time, and also the worship pastor. So he was both of those roles, and I was his admin. And I was only there for a couple months, and then things changed, and positions shifted, and people left. And that was how I ended up leading the worship team.
Okay, very nice. So you lead both the youth worship team and adults worship team as well?
I lead the youth worship team, and then I assist in leadership in the adult worship team.
Okay, very nice. Is there one that you prefer more than the other, or do you like them both?
I love them both.
Okay, that's awesome to hear. So let me ask you, what are some of the biggest challenges that you have faced in that worship leadership position? What are some of the biggest things that you faced that have been challenging for you?
I feel that in leadership, I'm a person who really deeply cares about what's doing best for the people that I lead. And so I care about people really deeply on an individual level. And so what comes along with that is that if I ever make a decision that's best for the group, but that maybe isn't exactly what a certain person wanted, that person expressing their difficulty with the decision that I made is definitely a big challenge for me, because I care so deeply about people on an individual level. I don't see people as the group, I see each and every one of them. And so it's tough for me whenever I made a decision that is the best for the majority of the people, but there are some people who don't appreciate that decision. That's something that every leader faces, but I'm not sure how it affects every leader, but it definitely affects me because I care about them all so deeply. And so whenever a decision that's made kind of rubs someone the wrong way or isn't what they were hoping for or expecting, that's probably the biggest challenge that I have to overcome.
Okay, wow. That's really good. And it's great to hear a perspective of someone who is younger in ministry and has only been doing it for a little while. What exactly the challenges you are facing are. That's really interesting. Let me ask you one more question. What is it about leadership that keeps you going? You know, what are the rewards that you found in leadership? The things that just encourage you to keep doing what you're doing. What keeps you in that ministry leadership role?
Well, all of us who go into ministry, our ultimate goal is to see people come to Jesus.
Amen. Yeah.
And so when people do come to Jesus, that's what rewards us. That's what keeps us going, because we see that mission accomplished. It's really easy goal to check off, because that's exactly what we're here for. But that isn't something that we necessarily see every single day. But something that we do see every day is that we interact with people, maybe people who are hurting, people who are struggling, people who are going through difficult times, or people who are at their best, people who are really thriving. We interact with people who are in the most intense of emotions sometimes. And we get to help walk those people through those really difficult things. And so no matter where you are in leadership, you have people that you pour into, and you have people that come to you in difficult times. And the thing that keeps me going the most is being able to help walk people through those times and help remind people that they have people that love them and care about them and are praying for them, and remind them how much that God loves them. And so seeing people take their next step in faith and invite Jesus into their life is obviously the thing that keeps me motivated. But I also stay really motivated by watching people come to church in their most difficult moments, and come to people for prayer in their most difficult moments, and watching them get through those times because of the grace of God and because of how powerful that he is. And so getting to be a part of his plan in that way is such an honor. And I always feel honored when someone is going through something and they come to me for guidance or for prayer, because it makes me feel like I am a part of God's big plan.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful thing. And so if I'm ever feeling like I'm not motivated to keep going, or I haven't seen enough response from the things that I'm doing, it just takes one moment like that to remind me why I'm doing this and what I'm here for.
Yeah. And I think what you said there is so good. A leader is someone that pours into people. You know, as a leader, no matter what type of organization or company or ministry that you are leading, 9 times out of 10, you are someone that is pouring into other people. And so that's why it takes such a specific type of person to be a leader. And I think you do a great job with that. And I'm so glad that I had this opportunity to just be able to interview you and get to know more about your leadership. So thank you so much for doing this with me. And yeah, that's it. Thank you. Well, hey, this is Pastor Kenny Philibom. He is the worship pastor at River City Church. Yep. You just started here about 6 months ago.
6 months ago.
But you've been a worship pastor for a very long time. Been in a lot of pastoral roles. But tell me a little bit about the leadership role that you have right now. What all does that entail? What all does that job look like for you?
Yeah, so it's pretty eclectic, actually. So my title is the worship pastor, but as many other jobs and professions have as a part of the job description, it's other duties as assigned. And so for me, that looks like directing our leadership college.
Okay, yeah.
And then kind of that third thing, kind of big thing that's under my job description is also like location aesthetics. So the things at our different locations of our church, the atmospheres, how do they look? Do people feel welcomed and invited when they walk in? How do things feel, like environments? And that translates all the way through kind of full circle back to my worship pastor job, back into like our Sunday services and things.
Okay.
Yeah. So, you know, with worship, that entails from all the way down from like scheduling volunteers and developing volunteers, all the way to like what songs are we singing on Sunday, and then all the way through to like, hey, those volunteers that are on your team, like what are they going through? What do they need prayer for? What hard things are they navigating with it? You can be there for them to help with and to pray with them for. So yeah, quite a wide variety between like worship, between directing the school, and then like trying to make things look good and feel good.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah.
So are these types of things, are these things that you did also in your previous roles, or is that something that, are these things like new to you in this role?
I've done all of them, some officially, some unofficially.
Okay.
Yeah, so like I would say my first job like 15, 20 years ago, you know, when it came time to like pick a paint color, I was just always the guy that people went and asked. So like in that capacity as a part of my job, but it definitely was not like a on paper kind of a thing.
Okay.
I to be honest, I don't math, so I don't know how long I've been a worship pastor. I know it started in 2005-ish, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, so somewhere in there. I've been leading worship, you know, before that, like in youth group and things like that. So been doing that for a long time. The directing of like a leadership college, I've done that in different capacities with other like similar programs, like School of Ministries and Master's Commissions and things like that.
Okay, yeah.
So yeah, for the most part, the things I'm doing right now are things that I've done before. Skill sets that are in my toolbox, so to speak. Yeah.
So tell me about how you first got started in leadership. What was your first leadership role, whether it's, you know, paid or unpaid?
Yeah.
Where would you consider you first started your leadership journey?
I would say I started going to youth group at 12 years old, and most of my leadership experience has happened within the context of the church. So that'll be throughout my answers. But but I would say I started going to youth group at 12, and then maybe a year or so in, like they had a band up there or whatever, like that led us in worship every week. And then like one night after youth group, they all quit and they were all gone. And so there was like one of the adult leaders was like, hey, we're going to need a band for next week. Does anyone else know how to play any instruments?
Oh, wow.
And so I was like young and dumb. And now I'm like older and dumb. But then I was like younger and dumb.
Now you've got the age.
Now I've got the age thing going. And so I was like, I'm sure I could figure something out. And so I just started teaching myself keyboard, and like that's when I got like given my first leadership position in terms of like being on a platform. And of course, there's so many other contexts in which you lead people, right? That aren't always up front on a platform. But in the context of my history, that's the way that it happened.
Yeah.
And that was just kind of the first stepping stone toward then leading worship in church, and then being asked to speak at public school assemblies, and traveling with a group of people who kind of did, for lack of a better phrase, like motivational speaking in public schools and things. And, it just all kind of went from there. That evolved into preaching and leading worship at conferences and different things. So it all kind of started back with this idea of like, hey, so teach yourself keyboard, and next Wednesday you're going to be up there in this leadership position.
Yeah.
So, that's maybe a smaller example in terms of how we might think of leadership, but that's where it started.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It's so interesting to hear that, like, that's kind of your starting space. I don't think I've ever told you, but the way I started, like, getting involved in ministry and things is like a very similar story to that. So, like getting involved in the youth worship team and kind of taking leadership over that.
That's awesome.
I was a similar age, like 13 years old.
I love that.
So yeah, that's a cool similarity I didn't know we had.
Yeah, me either.
So, let me ask you this. What are some of the biggest challenges that you've found in your leadership roles?
I would say reconciling, two things. I'm going to forget both. So the second thing is myself. I'll come back to that.
Okay.
I would say the first thing is just like reconciling this burden that I often feel internally between the potential that I see in people and then the current reality of that person. So like, I talk to somebody who feels like, man, I really feel like God wants me to like step out into being on the worship team, or I really feel like the Lord is asking me to be a greeter, but I'm nervous and I don't want to do it. And that person, you've interacted with them, and as a leader, like you can see in them giftings and talents and abilities, but yet they've got their unique set of challenges that are kind of hindering them from becoming that potential that you can see.
Yeah.
And I have found that as a leader, like sometimes just reconciling those two things that are at odds with one another can be really frustrating. So I have a hard time with that. And that kind of fuels right into that number 2, which is me, getting in my own way. And, especially when I was younger, like not knowing how to channel that frustration into something that was helpful and beneficial. And what I'm learning and have learned since has been like, recognize and understand where people are at, and then walk with them in that journey to getting where you see they could be. Yeah. And that's probably been like one of the more challenging things for me as a leader, is going like, oh, this isn't like a quick fix necessarily. This isn't something that's going to happen overnight, but often like being a leader is walking through the hard things with people, getting in the trenches with them and helping them see their own potential that you can see so easy, but oftentimes they're like, yeah, I don't see what you see in me, and walking with people through that is a really cool thing. So I think just like getting out of my own way, and not allowing that potential like frustration to take over me, that's a challenge for me.
Yeah, definitely. It's, no one ever said that being a leader was really easy.
Right.
There's a reason that very few people are the leaders that we have now, because being a leader is really difficult, and it takes a lot to be that kind of leader. So what you said, that was all really good. Tell me, one last question I have for you is, what is it that keeps you going in leadership? What is it that you find like is super rewarding for you?
I would say it always comes back to people, like in my line of work. That's just kind of what it always comes back to, is people.
Yeah.
I was an executive pastor at my previous church, and so I had my hands in a lot of the different ministries, and I got to interact with a lot of people, and sit in on a lot of like, whether it be like counseling meetings or whatever, with a lot of different people. And I got to see the Lord just do awesome transformations in people's lives.
That's right.
And not just like in the worship department, but also in students and in children's and in young marrieds and in seniors. I mean, like an A to Z. And so I think it's the people. It's being able to see how the Lord like transforms people, but how he uses us in community to do that. And so, you may have heard like the old cliche saying something to the effect of like, often the voice of God sounds like your spouse, or often the voice of God sounds like your boss, or whatever. And there's a measure of truth to that. And so just being able to, again, like walk with people through things, good and bad, like celebrate with people in amazing moments. And it all comes back to the people. Like that's what keeps me going. Having people there when I'm going through hard times, having that sense of community, and then also being able to be a leader for folks when they feel like, I don't know which way to go. I don't know which decision to make. I'm not sure exactly what to do. Because of your relationship with them, you're able to kind of speak into their life and help and assist them in some ways. And so I think helping people and being able to celebrate with people and mourn with people, that's kind of what keeps you going through the tougher days of leadership.
Yeah, definitely. I think that is one of the most incredible parts of not just leadership, but specifically leadership in ministry, is you're not only in like one area, like if you're the youth pastor or the worship pastor, you're not only with those people, but if anyone has ever worked at a church, they know you are involved in every single ministry that you possibly can be. And so you get to see and impact so many people, and, seeing the results and the rewards of that is an easy way to keep yourself fueled, keep yourself fired up, and to just want to keep going and keep seeing God work in amazing ways.
Absolutely.
So,
agree.
Well, Pastor Kenny, I really appreciate you taking the time to let me interview you, ask you some questions. I really appreciate it. I will talk to you soon. Well, hi, my name's Nick Hinke, and this is for my Leadership in Ministry class. This is Pastor Robbie. He's been my pastor and mentor for about 4 years now.
Wow.
So been with you for a little while. So you're the pastor here at River City Church in Lafayette, Indiana. Tell me a little bit about some of the different things that you see. What all do you oversee as the lead pastor of River City?
Yeah. Well, River City Church is it's a collective of ministries. And by that I mean, of course, it's a church. We meet on Sunday morning. We have life groups. There's a staff of the church and we have about 10 pastors, and we now have 4 locations. But beyond that, we have other things going on. So we have a significant community center that is near our Lafayette building, but it has its own business, so to speak, and ministry, the community. There are 3 child cares that are part of River City Church, one in West Lafayette, 2 here in Lafayette, and those involve a lot of employees and a lot of things going on, space that they take up and buildings that they're in, and we also have something called River City Properties, which is how we work with a lot of the streams of income that end up coming our way through different things. So there's a lot of different parts to River City Church, and of the employees. Now, most of these have to do with those child cares, but there's about 130 to 150 people normally that are in the River City system.
Yeah, that's incredible. And so now at this point in your leadership career, you're overseeing so many different things, so many different businesses and different assets of ministry. Like you said, there's 4 different locations that River City is overseeing right now. And so tell me about, where did you get started in leadership? Obviously you haven't always been here to this super leadership extent. So tell me about where you first started in leadership.
Wow. Well, I would say, I would guess that this got started actually when I was a teenager. Right after I became a Christian, I started becoming convinced that God was calling me to become a pastor, and started preaching as a teenager, and started leading a group of other young men that were like, we would meet for Bible study and prayer, and then we would go and minister in different locations like a teen challenges or youth groups, things like that.
Oh yeah.
And so those are some of my earliest memories of leadership, although I don't know that I would have put it in those terms.
Yeah. It's so cool to see your journey start out as something so small back then, and see the way that you've grown into being a leader and mentor for hundreds, if not thousands, of people now. And so that's really cool to hear about. Tell me about what are some of the biggest challenges that you've faced in your leadership roles?
I think a lot of the main challenges that I've faced in my leadership roles have been how to deal with trying to lead people who don't believe with you.
Yeah.
That God is leading you to take the steps that you are, particularly when people very often in churches are very nervous about taking risks. And we've had to take many risks along the way in order to make progress. And that's been one of the greatest challenges, is getting people to believe with me.
Yeah.
And but also, certainly when people leave the journey with you, it's hard. I would say the hardest things that I experience as a pastor is when people have left the church.
Yeah.
And certainly like what we experienced during the pandemic, we lost hundreds of people from our church.
Wow. Yeah.
And that was really hard on me, mentally, hard on my wife. And I guess, holding on to the idea that God had still gifted me, and God was still, wanting me to pursue the vision that He was giving me. That's a challenge.
Yeah, definitely. So let me ask you then, how do you overcome those things? How have you been able to find in your journey the best way to get past those and continue moving forward?
Yeah, well, I would say that, for one, having other strengths in my life.
Yeah.
Like, I have a strong marriage. I have strong friendships. I love my kids. I think I have a good relationship with all of them. And so being able to draw enjoyment and strength out of those things when other things are painful or not going well has helped me a lot. Certainly praying and the Bible has helped me through various crises that I've faced. Having mentors that I could be honest with about my doubts or about what I perceived as my failures has been a great help. And also having friends that I could tell the truth to, and who could pray for me and give me wisdom. I'm certain I wouldn't be still in the ministry today if I hadn't had a lot of those key relationships in my life.
Yeah, that's really good. That speaks to how important it is to have that community of people around you to help keep you strong and keep you accountable.
Right.
One last question for you is, what is it about your leadership role? What is it that keeps you going? What is it that you find really rewarding about what you're doing?
For me, it really all comes back to seeing personal transformation in people. It's very gratifying to me to see somebody like you that I met 4 years ago, see how much you've grown over in that space of time. To see, your wife. I remember when she was a lot younger than she is now. She was a girl, and I didn't necessarily have a direct investment in her life early on, at least that I knew of, but to see how she's grown, how God has worked in her life in the context of the church here and her family, and this is a spiritual center for them. To see that kind of thing happen, that's like something where I say to myself, this is why I'm alive. Is to see lives grow, to see people change. I was talking with a guy on Saturday, and he had come here less than a year ago, and he gave his life to Christ. He was baptized, and he was telling me, the people I work with tell me I am such a better person than I was not long ago.
Wow.
And he was thanking me basically for the role that I have in his life, which to me, he hears me preach. I see him in the lobby occasionally, but I don't have like a close friendship with him.
Mm-hmm.
But to recognize God uses my efforts to really change his life, not just for now, but for eternity. That's what makes it, that's the fuel that keeps me going.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, you are the best leader I've ever been able to work with and work under. And so hearing all this really great insight is super helpful and encouraging to me, as I've just in the past couple of years been starting this leadership journey of my own. And so it's really great to be able to ask you these questions and hear some good mentoring advice. And so,
thank you.
Yeah, I really appreciate you recording this with me and taking some time to answer some of my questions.
Oh, that's my pleasure.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, thanks.